I'm so happy to be in my barn this morning. I'm going to be showing you how to arrange spring flowers in a beautiful centerpiece. I absolutely love flower arranging. Over the years, I've developed a couple of tips and learned from other experts how to make a beautiful, long-lasting arrangement. So I thought I would start with some essential tools. Now, these are things that you may already have at home, or you may want to invest in if you do plan to do this more often. The most important thing would be a really good pair of kitchen shears or garden shears. These are from my friend Katie Campbell's shop in Waterdown, and they're a really good hardy pair that do well even on outside branches and that sort of thing. I also received a tip once from a client actually to use a cutting board and a knife to cut the stems. If you have a bunch of them that are kind of a soft stem, that can be a really easy way to trim the bottoms of your flowers. And classic garden shears, these are great for trimming branches. If you're doing any foraging, these are a great tool to have. Of course, fresh water is essential. You do want to change the water on your flower arrangement daily. And sometimes plant food is required and sometimes it's not. So I find if you just keep your flowers in fresh water, they generally last about a week or so. The fun part is always choosing a vessel. So that will really depend on where you plan to place your flower arrangement. I'm going to show you a couple of different options here. You want to look at the size of the mouth on your vessel relative to the flowers that you've selected. So in this case, I want to make a centerpiece that's not huge. I do like it to look really full. Most of these flowers that I've selected are already quite open, so I can account for that in the floral arrangement. But if you are arranging when they're still quite tight and they are going to bloom much larger, then you want to make sure that you account for that in your vessel size. There are all different types of techniques for how to actually hold your flowers in your vase. Some people suggest using flower frogs. This is a very small one, but they're almost like pins that you place at the bottom of your vase, and then you can actually stick your flower inside of it, and it helps to keep it upright. It's a great tool to have. I use these occasionally. The other thing that is sometimes suggested is to tape it off at the very top and you make a bit of a grid. I prefer my arrangements to be very organic, free-flowing, so I'm just going to try to place things so that they hold each other in and do it very casually. As far as the vessel I'm going to use today, I love this piece here because it is that gorgeous etched glass detail, but this was an old candle actually that I had. You can see the candle is still inside. And I just put a smaller vase inside of it with water. And I think this is going to make for a really beautiful vase for this arrangement. So again, start by filling up your vase with fresh water. I'm going to move these out of the way. Now, I have a variety of flowers here, and that's something to keep in mind when you're at the floral shop. Whether you're buying a pre-made arrangement and then breaking down the flowers and rearranging it yourself, or actually picking single blooms. You want to look for a variety of color, sizes, and even, so I'll show you here, like these mini hydrangea, they're such a beautiful full flower that they make for a great base in an arrangement. So I'm going to start with that. So you're going to take your stem and relative to your vessel, since I'm going to use these as a base, we're going to keep these quite low to the mouth of your vessel. I'm going to trim these always on an angle. You want to ensure that the flower is cut so that it's able to drink as much water as possible, and place that in. Now, when I'm shopping for flowers, I'm often trying to buy things in threes, especially if they're a noticeable bloom such as this. You want to avoid using even numbers just as a general rule for aesthetics. And this third one here. just place them inside. They'll kind of fall as they like. And you can see that I'm just starting to form that base here at the bottom. These were a really beautiful flower. These are called a rice flower, a pink rice flower, and I loved that they have this little bit of color. They have a staggered height. They do have more of a woodsy kind of a stem. So in that case, we're going to trim it, and you want to try to also clear off as much of this branch that's down below that's going to be exposed to the water. Anytime you have that in the water, it can form bacteria, and that's actually what makes the arrangement not last as long. So you can see I've just sort of cleared off those pieces here. Let's see how this height feels. You can always trim more later, but let's try to have something that kind of sticks out a little bit. And just clear these off with your hands. It's very helpful to be doing this in the barn rather than the kitchen, because if I make a mess here, I don't worry about it. Okay. Now these are so pretty. These are called wax flowers. They're the most delicate little bloom, and I love that they still have a bright green, sort of a leaf. And these will last quite a while too, which is really nice. I may actually trim this one down a little bit. Now, occasionally, when you have a more woodsy stalk like this, it doesn't hurt to actually cut it right down the middle here to try and open up the branch a bit more. Oh, sorry, I trimmed the wrong one here. I'm just going to place that here. Now, there are a couple of blooms here that I got that were absolutely stunning. The first were these roses here, and they're a really tight rose that will open up into more of a garden rose style. I think these are called tea roses. I thought these would be lovely, and sometimes it's nice to have those low to the mouth of the arrangement. So you can see here. And you can see that it's starting to take shape a little bit more. And inside of the vase, these different stems are helping to support the form that we're creating. Sometimes you'll get a stem like this where you have multiple offshoots, and it's nice to be able to separate those. So I'm just going to cut that here. This has a beautiful leafy detail, which I liked because it meant I didn't need to buy as much filler. You know, we have a lot of green that's incorporated in various blooms here, and sometimes just having this bit of a broad leaf helps to add a little bit more depth. This one here is going to be a little bit too low and possibly in the water, so I'm going to remove that. You want to think about the movement of your arrangement, and especially if it's the sort of piece that's going to be sitting on a table and viewed from multiple angles, think about how it looks from different sides. So be continuously turning your arrangement. Some florists like to work with more of a Lazy Susan type base, and that allows them to easily look at the multiple angles, but I think it's important to always be kind of moving it around and seeing how it feels. So I love the way that this is starting to come together. Now, I'll add this one last rose here. With a signature bloom like this beautiful flower here, I want it to stay a little bit higher than some of the base flowers so that it really stands out. So I'm going to just place that here. And you can see that even though I selected flowers that are mostly within the same color scheme, there is still a fair bit of variety. So something that's more white, that's repeated in a few elements, and then the pink. So really, if you aim to have maybe 2 or 3 primary colors in your arrangement, that's a really nice way for it to look consistent. So again, just cutting this a little bit longer. The nice thing with having 3 feature blooms throughout too is that when you're spinning it, it's easy to get that evenness of each side. Now this morning I went into our garden where everything's finally in bloom, and I actually cut a couple of these beautiful tulips. And I love tulips because as they continue to bloom, their stem kind of goes in an irregular motion, and it adds a bit of fluidity. And again, you're always looking for movement in your arrangement to make it feel artful. So I'm going to try incorporating this and hope that as it continues to grow, it will also change direction a little bit. Again, the rule of 3. So just making sure here that I always have at least 3 of each bloom. And it's amazing, even though this wasn't a large vessel, it takes quite a few flowers to fill this in and make it feel like a really luxe arrangement. So don't be afraid to overbuy or over forage when you are looking for flowers. It does take quite a bit to look like a really full arrangement. I think that looks so pretty. And you can see that even though like these rice flowers looked so tall when I first placed them, now that we have the movement of other flowers that are projecting a little bit further out, it has great form. Now these are sweet little, I think they're like a mini daisy. I'm also going to add these into some of these spots. I always like to leave one of these filler flowers to the very end because then you can see what holes you need to fill in. So I'm going to just add a couple in here, and that's going to add a beautiful bit of softness. Again, just clear off the leaves with your fingers. Help to keep the water really nice and clear. There we go. I think that looks beautiful. I think this will be a perfect centerpiece in our home. As you can see, creating a beautiful flower arrangement at home is actually quite simple and fairly quick. It just involves getting a beautiful variety of flowers. I love taking my children actually to the flower market. They love to pick out different varieties. And it's fun this time of year too to be able to incorporate some of what's growing in our own garden. I hope that this inspires you, and I look forward to showing you some recipes in the kitchen.